You're a musician. Someone told you you need to get in-ear monitors. Do you? Find out here. I get this question a few times a month on average. A friend or someone I've never met in my life hits me up on Instagram and says, "Hey dude, I saw you use Ultimate Ears. Which do you think I should buy?" Now this is not a simple answer, since if you're getting molded in-ears from any of the companies, you're going to be spending anywhere between $500 to $3,000. That's the kind where you have to have your ears scanned and then they make in-ear monitor molds to fit perfectly for your ear. They're totally customized. They won't fit anyone else. Also, it really depends on what scenario you're going to be using these in. So let's start from the top. What is a stage monitor? Whatever form they come in, the stage monitors are a way for you to hear whatever you need to hear on stage. You can do this with the personal wedges, which are the speakers you usually see in front of musicians pointing up at them. You can also do this with side fills, which are full-on PA systems on the big stages. You'll see them on the side of the stage, pointed at the musicians, and their job is to fill up the sound on the big stage, which is why they're called side fills. And of course, you can also do this with in-ear monitors. Great. So now that you understand what stage monitors are, let's move on. What are in-ear monitors? Basically, in-ears are headphones that fit in your ear rather than over it. Usually they're molded to your ears in the high-end models, as I mentioned earlier, and in them you get the sound that you usually get on stage through the classic wedges or the side fills. So you might ask for some hi-hat or vocals or some keys. Whatever you used to ask for on your wedge or on the side fills, you now ask it to be sent to your in-ear monitors. Well, if we already have wedges on stage, why use the in-ears in the first place? See, the problem, well, I mean, it's not actually a problem, it's just something that happens, but the issue with having a full band on stage with a bunch of wedges is that it gets really, really loud. Let's take a rock band, for example. You'll have a loud-ass drummer, a couple of guitarists with very, very loud amplifiers, a bass player dominating the low end with their amp, and then you've got the lead singer trying to hear the vocals through a mask of rock noise. Now the only way to do that is give them a lot of their vocals in the wedge and maybe some in the side fills. What does that do? You got it. It creates even more volume on stage. If you're a monitor engineer and you haven't had time to tune the wedges, you also might get some feedback. If it's a small club, the music could be so loud from the stage that you don't even hear the PA in the crowd. By the way, this also applies in a different way to arena shows, because the more PA you have, the more the sound is bouncing back at you from the walls to the stage. You end up having to have like a stack of amplifiers and wedges and side fills in order to hear yourself and hear everyone else so you can play together. Something that used to happen to me a lot when I played with Enrique was at sound check I would take out one of my ears or both of them and you could audibly hear everything. When I would hit the guitar, I would play and I would hear it bounce back at me a second or a second and a half later from the arena. It was crazy. Can you imagine a whole band playing full band and it bouncing back at them a second and a half later? Chaos. Actually, here's another thing to think about. You're standing in front of your amps and your wedge. Everything sounds awesome. You can hear everything. And now it's time to walk to the center of the stage to give them your killer guitar solo. Suddenly, your guitars get quieter and you're struggling to hear yourself over the drums. Why? Because you're no longer in that sweet spot where you can hear everything you need to hear. And all of those reasons are why in-ears were born. What in-ears do is, number one, they control the loudness. Instead of fighting how loud the band is, you just put in your molded in-ears, and right away you'll notice they block like 80% of the stage noise. So now you're fighting so much less and you're protecting your ears from the drums and cymbal and loud amps. I'll even use them sometimes as earplugs. They don't have to be plugged into anything, just in rehearsals and sound checks. I'll just pop them in. They're great. The second thing they do, now that everything's quiet in your ears while everyone's playing, is they serve as monitors. Instead of the wedge blasting at you, you just say to your monitor engineer, "Hey Carrie, can I have some vocals in my ears?" And instead of destroying your ears with volume from the wedge and worrying about feedback, she just turns up your vocals a little and bam, you've got your vocals right there, straight to your ear. You can hear them perfectly and clearly. Now herein lies one of the issues as well. If you're lucky enough to work with Eddie Caipo, for example, sound engineer for Enrique Iglesias, Smash Mouth, Gwen Stefani, Christina Aguilera, just to mention a few, well, you're in luck. This guy is the best. I've been working with him since 2011, and what he does is nothing less than an art. When you're on stage with him mixing your ears, it's going to straight up sound like a mastered album. He literally takes the time to fully mix the band in your ears. I'm talking multiple layers of compression, gates, EQs, dynamic EQs, multiple different types of verbs used for different instruments. And after all of that, he'll throw everything in groups and put multi-band compressors on them as well, just to tighten the sound even more. And then he sends you that. So like I said, by the time you get your vocals, they sound like they've been magically processed, and you hear the band as if you're listening to an album. This guy is a genius. Not only that, he's never satisfied, and he's always trying to get better and better. But as I said, this is a problem. Why? Well, if you don't have an Eddie by your side, your in-ear mix might sound like cardboard, completely and utterly lifeless. Imagine the most uninspiring audio you've ever heard. It's like that. You ask for your vocals, and what you get is your vocals. No EQ, no high-pass filter, no compression, no reverbs, no delays, nothing. Just straight up, dry vocals. The third reason you'd want to use these is that if you're working wirelessly, you can go anywhere you want on stage and you'll hear the exact same mix, no matter where you are. I actually used to run into the crowd when I performed with Smash Mouth, and no matter where I was, I could hear a perfect mix. On stage, off stage, didn't matter. So let's get back to the start of this video. When people ask me what in-ears they should get, I first ask them where they're going to be using them, and even more importantly, with who. See, even if you're touring without a monitor engineer like Eddie, there's a good chance that one day you'll have a great engineer who's experienced and gets that in-ears need to be finessed like mixing a record. But the next day, you guys might get someone who has no idea what he's doing. You ask for guitar in your ears, he mistakenly turns off the DJ instead, and not only does he blast your ears and nearly causes permanent damage, but he just destroyed your $2,000 brand new in-ears. In-ears are a different beast, and when you mix them as opposed to mixing wedges, you really have to be super careful because they're inside someone's ear. That's no joke. You could destroy a musician's career by hitting the wrong knob and blowing out their eardrums. So as I was saying, I ask people what kind of venues they'll be playing. I also ask them who else in the band is going to be using in-ears. Are they working with a click that everyone needs to hear, or is a drummer just counting everyone off? Do they have a permanent monitor engineer? Or if they don't, are they interested in setting up a rig so they can all control their own monitors? You just have to plan ahead when it comes to in-ears. Now, if you answered all the questions and decided that you do want to go with in-ears, there are multiple different companies that you can use. My personal favorite since 2007 is Ultimate Ears. Awesome quality and awesome customer service. A few more things to touch on are the differences between the companies and the differences between the different models, as well as how often you should get new in-ears. These days, you have companies like Ultimate Ears, JH Audio, 64 Audio, and so on. They all have different models. The main difference between the models is the same difference that you're going to find between JBL speakers, Yamaha speakers, and like Bose speakers. They all sound a little different, right? Here's why. Some enclosures have two drivers in them. Those are the elements behind the speakers. For instance, the monitors behind me, you see? They each have two drivers, a woofer handling the lows and the mids, and then a tweeter handling the high frequencies. Some enclosures have up to 5 drivers in them, handling the different frequencies. You got sub, bass, low mid, highs, all in one enclosure, as you can see in this picture. The benefit of using separate drivers for separate frequency ranges is that you allow each driver to focus its workload on a specific area of frequencies rather than all of them, thereby giving you more headroom and more clarity if done correctly. Well, same goes with in-ears. You'll find that most of the companies start with 2 drivers per ear, like the Ultimate Ears UE5s, and then end up around 8 drivers per ear, so 8 speakers per ear. Why would you have so many drivers per ear? Well, like I said, That way certain frequencies get split between different drivers and you get more dynamics, headroom, and clarity, which I can explain in another video. In the Ultimate Ears UE Live model, with 8 drivers per ear, 3 of them alone are handling bass frequencies. The 64 Audio A18T model has, wait for it, 18 drivers per ear. I can't say I've ever used them, but damn! I've spoken to people who've used different companies, and they basically say that some of them are better for rock, some of them are better for EDM, some of them are better for jazz. Again, just like your speakers in your home or your studio, there are many different kinds and they all have different EQ curves and crossovers, and they're made of different materials and elements, and therefore they sound different from each other. Same goes for in-ears. Some will be heavier on the bass, some will have a flatter frequency response than others, and some will focus on sparkling highs and dynamics. All these companies can do different colors as well as custom artwork. Just keep in mind that it'll probably cost a bit more for cool artwork, but in my opinion, it's totally worth it since you're going to have these for years. And on that note, how long are they good for? I've been told that the shape of our ears changes as our bodies tend to do, and that you should get new in-ears every 3 years or so. Since your ears are changing and growing, you'll notice that over the years you'll have less of a seal. So when they're new and freshly molded to your ear shape, they'll have a great seal. They'll just fit right in. No matter what faces you make on stage, no matter what you do, open your mouth, sing something, they'll just have a perfect fit. What you'll notice over the years, though, is that when you make different faces, like maybe you open your mouth to sing a specific lyric, suddenly it won't be as tight in your ear, and that'll cause a bass dropout. Only when you sing that lyric or make that face. What's happening there is that you're losing the seal you originally had. It's not the in-ears, it's your body changing and growing. That's when you know it might be time for a new pair. Now that could happen in 3 years, it could happen in 5 years. If you're tight on money, I won't sweat buying new ones until that happens. But if you can afford buying new ones every 2-3 years and it's a legit business expense, it's usually worth it because they're making them sound better and better as years go by. Well, that's all I've got to say about in-ears. If you enjoyed the info, like the video. If you want more, subscribe. Comment to let me know your thoughts and what else you want me to talk about. Hit that bell. I'll catch you next time.